Oh, there's Barbara. You made it. How you doing? Oh, you're on mute, so we can't hear you.
I said, hi. So glad to be on here.
Yes, and happy birthday once again.
Thank you. I'm so glad to see that. I saw that wonderful presentation and I said, well, I wonder who did this. You know, mine don't work like it used to. Thank you.
Certainly. Well, that was part of, in fact, as I said, that was our first live presentation from the Journal-isms Roundtable for the public. And that was when Barbara went to the museum and was interviewed about her book on with Coretta Scott King. And then, you know, like I said, we had the public there, and then she signed books until they were sold out of her books. So,
and that's because of this group.
That's right.
Don't take yourself out of it.
That's right. That's right.
Introduce me to that. That's
right.
Happened.
Because Jean Paul Osinski was at that round table, and he was the chief operating officer of the museum. And he said, and when Barbara told everybody about the book, he said, well, why don't you come to the museum and we'll do a presentation.
And the rest is history.
Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, people are lining up. That's good. Yeah. Well, Geneva Overholzer just said, well, there's no surprise there about Karine being called back to the White House for this presidential announcement at 4 o'clock today. And as I told some people, one of the questions I was going to ask was, what's life been like since Afghanistan and Haiti? And now we know.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
Is Karine from Haiti?
Her parents, she was born, yes, her parents are from Haiti and she was born in Martinique.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
She had connections there.
Oh yeah, she's a Haitian American, I guess you would call it.
Oh.
Yeah, so she would have been a good person. She's a good person to ask about that topic. Okay. Oh, Ozier is here. Good.
Oh, Ozier!
We don't see him yet, though.
But my hero, Malcolm Nance, I see.
Malcolm, I don't see him yet.
Good to see everyone.
Oh, there's Geneva. I was just repeating your comment. Good. Oh, there's Malcolm. Okay.
Hey, I'm lurking till I have to talk. I gotta edit this book, man.
Oh, really? What's this one on?
Oh, geez. I've been working on this since last August. You know what the title is?
What is it?
They Want to Kill Americans. The armed fanatics? No, the armed militias, fanatic terrorist, and deranged ideology of the coming Trump insurgency.
All right. All right.
I predicted it last year, so I said I may as well write a book about
it. You were right. You're right. That's just amazing.
That's where many of us met Malcolm right here at our group. I remember standing next to him. Yeah, we're getting something to eat, and next day I saw him on CNN. And I said, "Wow, I just ate with him."
Yeah, I'm good at that. All right, hey, I'm gonna lurk, y'all. So
okay, and there's Joel from Paris.
Hey.
Okay.
You're away from the hurricanes and all this other stuff, the craziness we're having here.
How are we just in time? Left Friday.
Right. Okay, now I guess we need to find out about our guest from the White House, Trey Baker. Let's see. As soon as he gets here, we can start his portion. Okay, let's see. We do want to stick to our schedule as much as we can. Okay, and Erica, we want Erica also. All righty, Maria, good to see you. And Sherry, good to see everybody, actually. You know, Lilia, yes. All right, Jeanette, Gary, yes. We're just talking about Haiti.
Hi, Joe.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
All right, Karen, All righty. Well, okay. Is Malcolm out? Okay. Okay, good to see you all. Well, in the meantime, while we're waiting for our White House folks, let me just tell everybody, welcome to the journalism. Okay, welcome to the Journal-isms Roundtable. We've been doing this since 1999, usually in person at a DC restaurant, but since the pandemic, we've been on Zoom and our numbers have multiplied and the geographical availability has exponentially increased, and we're all very happy about all of that. So welcome. We consider this a networking session to network and to learn. And so please feel free to use the chat room to do the networking. And what else shall I say? We're going to save the introductions. Actually, you know, we're going to save the introductions till the end, but, oh, there's Erica. Okay, good. All right. Hello, Erica. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you, sir?
Excellent. All right. Good to see you. Is your guest here?
He
Trey?
should be. Let's see. I don't see him, but I know I just spoke to him and he said he was logging on.
Oh, okay, good.
Let me just give him a call to make sure he doesn't have any issues.
Oh, sure. Oh, Katrice, you made it. Great. Good to see you.
You too.
And there's Maria. Saw her earlier. Amy, good to see you too. Amy is from American University, and we're going to be doing some partnering with them. So that's one of the reasons why Amy's here. We're looking forward to that. Okay, let's see. There's Michelle and Deborah, our USA Today folks. You know, I scolded a little bit gently Jared Henderson for not being here. He was active in the NABJ convention, and he said he's going to make it. And I said, well, you know, you can just ask Michelle and Deborah about it. Oh, my big sisters, he said. So, Jared Henderson, for those who don't know, is a photojournalist who was the associate member of the board of NABJ. So he was very active with that. And he's won some awards, very active, but also very busy guy. So one of these days he'll make it here.
Allow me to plug Jared Henderson. Allow me to plug Jared Henderson. He's tired from working on the Visual Task Force auction yesterday at NAB Saturday, where we tried to raise some money, always try to raise money for the NABJ Scholarship Fund.
Yes.
For those of you, I want to guilt you all who weren't on that call yesterday because we did it virtually. We normally do it live. Please join us next year and let's shake it up for these great students that we have to prepare for the next generation.
Yes, and of course you were one of the auctioneers, if not the main auctioneer, correct?
Well, for 30 years, the main auctioneer, but it's okay. I'll date myself readily.
Oh, and in the chat, Deborah Perry says, Jared is also working on a big project. Look for it later this year. So,
he's in Houston, Texas as we speak.
Is that right?
Yes.
Well, that was where the convention was supposed to be originally if we were going to meet in person. So
well, there you have it.
There you have it. Next year, they were all looking forward to being in Las Vegas with the National Association of Hispanic Journalists, a joint convention. So they're looking for that, knock on wood, if, you know, if everything is safe by then. Okay, now looking for Erica.
Yes, sir. I am here, and it looks like Trey is on as well.
Okay. Oh, Trey is there?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, well, why don't you, Erica is Director for African American Media at the White House. So she will introduce Trey Baker.
Absolutely.
Take it
So
away.
first, I'd just like to thank you, Mr. Prince, for having us here, for being so patient with us White House folk. I know that it requires quite a bit of patience sometimes. I am excited to be here for this legendary gathering. I remember staffing Mr. Claiborne when he spoke a few months ago. So it's quite an honor to be invited to meet you all myself. I also see a lot of familiar faces. I see, Deborah Berry, who worked closely with Mr. Claiborne, Hazel Edney, who I talk to pretty frequently, Mary Curtis. And Ron Claiborne is most exciting to me because I met Ron Claiborne in college. And he actually was a keynote speaker at this event. It was called the Ebony Appreciation Awards Committee. And I got to introduce him. And I remember feeling so cool that I got to introduce this big time GMA journalist. So I am so excited to come full circle here, sir. And it's good to see you. It's been a long time.
She outgrew that.
It's still the coolest thing I've done to date, I promise. So anyway, it's great to see all of you all. I hope that I have the opportunity to work with you in this capacity of mine. Folks often ask me what my portfolio actually includes. Is it media that's geared towards the Black community? Is it Black-owned media? Is it Black people who do media? Is it Black issues only? And I often respond that it's all issues are Black issues. We're not a monolith. The mandate I've been given in this role is to ensure that the Black community has access to information from the White House. And so if that's a priority for you, I imagine it is. I definitely like to work with you. Also, I know that, many of you have been doing this for longer than I can even imagine. So if there's a recommendation or insight that you can share on how I can be doing my job better, my door is always open. I love constructive criticism. And I just want to put one more flag out there. We're getting ready for HBCU week at the White House. And I'm actually working with Trey, who you're going to hear from shortly, to identify the news publications at every HBCU in the country, because we also want to give student journalists an opportunity to engage with and report on senior officials at the White House. So, I'm always open to new ways to engage. So if you ever have ideas or if you want to reach out on just your own beats, I'll ask Mr. Prince to share my contact with you, and I'd love to work with everyone. So
great.
Without further ado, I'm sorry, what was that, sir?
No. Keep going.
Oh, okay. So anyway, without further ado, I know Karine was supposed to be here today. The president is speaking at 4 on Hurricane Henry in Afghanistan. And she had to run in. She's juggling childcare as well. So it was a lot today, but she definitely wants to come in and talk to you all. We've been talking about this for a while. So if she can do that at a future roundtable, we definitely want to make that work. But I have the next best thing, Mr. Trey Baker, who I work with very closely in the White House Office of Public Engagement. My favorite thing about Trey is his ability to hit the ground running and support his colleagues whenever he's needed. So that being said, Trey literally found out about this call an hour ago. And he graciously agreed to fill in for Karine, who, like I said, will definitely come back. Trey handles quite a few portfolios for the president as White House Senior Advisor for Public Engagement. In this position, he specializes in outreach to the Black community, to civil rights organizations, law enforcement, and criminal justice reform, and engagement with professional and collegiate sports leagues. Prior to his White House appointment, Trey was National Director of African American Engagement for the Biden for President campaign. His approach to community engagement was forged during his time as city manager for the city of Grenada, Mississippi. Earlier in his career, Baker served as legislative counsel for Congressman Benny G. Thompson. He's also served as an attorney at a Denver-based civil litigation firm where he specialized in medical malpractice defense and complex commercial litigation. He is a native of Grenada, Mississippi, and a graduate of Tougaloo College and the University of Denver Sturm College of Law. So I will now kick it over to Mr. Trey Baker.
Thanks so much, Erica, for the gracious introduction. It's often said when somebody has to say that much in an introduction that you're not very well known. So I appreciate you giving me that introduction, and thank you to all of you. To Richard Prince. It's an honor to be here in the stead of Kareem. And I know y'all, and I want to thank all of y'all for coming on, because I know you bought tickets to the Beyonce concert, and the Mississippi Jazz Trio showed up, and y'all stayed anyway. And so we just hope that we can give you a good show. Before we get started, though, I do want to just shout out my dear friend Deborah Berry, who I see on this call. Deborah used to chase Congressman Thompson around and ask us to try to give her exclusives onto various things having to deal with Homeland Security and otherwise. But she's great. She even covered some City of Grenada things when I was in local government. And so just really appreciate her. So wanted to, not to give Deborah 2 shout outs in one introduction, but really appreciate everything that she did and everything that y'all do. I mean, I think Black press, Black media is so vitally important. Just like everything, when it comes to making sure that Black people are in the room and making sure that there's a voice there, y'all see perspectives that other folks don't otherwise. And so you are able to carry messages to our community in a way that other people just cannot. And so I just wanted to start with thanking you there. And so what I'm going to do is talk through a few things. Karine, of course, as Principal Deputy Press Secretary, is more geared on the press side. I'm on the engagement side. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that from my perspective. And then I was told this is dinner party format, or I guess it's Sunday brunch format. So I'm happy to chop it up with you beyond just kind of the formalities. So it's been a hectic couple of weeks in the White House and around the country. I mean, you have Hurricane Henry that's on the East Coast right now, in the Afghanistan situation, which the president is going to speak about today, that Karine is working on. But also, you've got Haiti, which was, it's just deeply personal. And I really hope that Karine can come back and talk to you because she speaks so eloquently about Haiti, with both of her parents being from there. But what I will say is this on Haiti is the president is very clear in supporting Haiti as a top priority, and having the USAID Administrator Samantha Power to be going full speed. We just had Secretary Mayorkas from Homeland Security to go down, and he did several roundtable discussions. He spoke with the Cuban community, but he also spoke with the Haitian community. He talked about the issues going on in Haiti, but also issues that have to do with Haitian American populations. As of this week, it's my understanding that the U.S. Coast Guard has transported 143 medical and search staff, including members of the Disaster Assistance Response Team, and nearly 7,000 pounds of medical supplies to Haiti. We heard from Secretary Austin on Friday that the USSS Arlington was en route, and I know now that it has landed, carrying a fleet of surgical team, 200 Marines, 2 helicopters, and a landing craft unit. So there's a focus there, and the resources of the American people are going to try to help and assist in the search and rescue, and then also the recovery in Haiti. And so we'll continue to keep you updated. I know that we have journalists on right now who have been a big part of this coverage and covered some of the events down in Miami. And so you'll continue to hear from us on Haiti. In addition to, what we have going on this week in Haiti and Afghanistan and with the issues of the extreme weather going on the East Coast, we have the overall umbrella issue that we're dealing with of COVID-19 that hasn't stopped. We are pushing to get shots in arms to end the pandemic once and for all. This week, the president came and talked about booster shots and being fully vaccinated. I was talking to my mama yesterday, and she has figured out that she got her first shot in March, or her last shot in March, and so she'll be due in November for her booster. And so looking at 8 months after the second dose of Pfizer or Moderna for folks to go back and get that booster shot. We're also going to get more information on Johnson & Johnson in the coming weeks about when the boosters should fall there. So those are the big overarching issues that we're working on. But the other thing that's happening, and we should see some more movement on this week, is the president's overall Build Back Better agenda. Because while you have to go and work on the issues as they come up, whether it's Afghanistan or Haiti, there's still a domestic agenda that the president has been talking about from day one and even during the campaign on how you build back better. And we have our alliteration, but it really means something in that, with COVID-19, this country was in such a state that we had to come all the way back, and then we have to build on top of that. We saw it first start off with the American Rescue Plan. So the American Rescue Plan was the $1.9 trillion that was passed immediately in the first days of this administration. And what there was shots in arms and money in pockets. That was the $1,400 checks. That was the additional resources for COVID-19. But then there was so much else that was a part of it. There was the money that went to HBCUs in terms of the HERF funding. There was the Black farmers money to the tune of $5 billion to do something about what has been an institutional, really ongoing discrimination against farmers of color. And so the American Rescue Plan not only put us in a place that was manageable for COVID-19, but it also pushed us forward in a lot of different areas. Right now, and we heard from some of our friends at UNCF and Thurgood Marshall College Fund about how HBCUs are in a better place financially today between the having debt forgiven, having students debt forgiven, and then being able to add on top of it with her funding. And so that was all in the American Rescue Plan. And I'm gonna try to, kind of say all the Build Back Better in a way that encompasses everything. But then as a part of the Build Back Better agenda, you had infrastructure. Infrastructure was the bill that was just passed in the Senate that we were calling the bipartisan infrastructure deal. And what that's going to do is that's going to, pull all the lead pipes out of the ground and make sure we have clean drinking water. And that means a lot to our communities. You look at a place like Flint, and I think Deborah may have even covered this, but we had a situation like this in my hometown of Grenada, where a bad corporate actor polluted and caused a lot of damage in a particular neighborhood that has since become a Superfund site. And so that infrastructure package will do things and help our community in that way. Another thing that's near and dear to my heart as a former city official is that we're paving roads, giving infrastructure for roads and bridges across the country. And that's going to provide jobs for folks. There's going to be opportunities for Black people to be able to take part in the government contracting. And so that piece will have to get litigated over in the House, and then we'll be looking at the infrastructure portion of the Build Back Better agenda.
Very good.
The final, go ahead, Rich.
No, I was just going to say that some people probably have questions about what you've been saying. So
okay.
I want to be sure to leave time for them.
Okay, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I got a couple more things.
Yes.
And then we'll open it up for folks to chat.
Okay.
And then the final part of the Build Back Better is really the personal and human infrastructure parts of it. And so that's all realized in this $3.5 trillion budget package that you're seeing come around. And that has to do with healthcare, education, housing. It's going to create millions of jobs, clean energy jobs. And then it's also going to work to help people who need it the most, help working folks, particularly the historic child tax credit. So that's happening every 15th of the month. Your child will be able to get either $250, $300 a month for each child in your household to just help through the end of the year. And we've seen this. We've seen it help people. My sister always tells me when her child tax credit has hit the direct deposit, and it's helping people's lives. And so, what we're working on and what I'm working on is making sure that folks over the next couple of weeks and going forward understand what this Build Back Better agenda will mean for their community. For me, what that means for Black folks. My area of expertise is engaging with the Black community. And so, one of my things that's very important, and I think something that, is a place where you're so important, is that there's a lot happening. There's a lot that people have access to, but so many times in our community, people don't know about these resources. They don't know about being able to go to SBA for resources, being able to go to the Minority Business Development Agency. And so a lot of the time that I spend doing outreach is making sure that our communities have this information, that can utilize this information. I do a weekly newsletter that goes out. I do a weekly engagement stakeholders meeting where people who are in these organizations, whether it's our civic groups, whether it's our faith leaders, whether it's our elected officials, come on, and they can hear this information and then take it out to the people. And so whether it's these Build Back Better policies, or whether there's more on voting rights that the vice president is leading, or more on police reform that's always a constant focus for us. My job is to make sure that folks have this information who are stakeholders out in the community, and that they're able to take it and run with it and make sure people can really understand it and then use it for their advantage. So I'll stop right there. There's plenty to talk about. There's always a lot going on. But it was important to come here. The Black press are so many times the gatekeepers and the narrative setters for how folks see this information. And so just wanted to make sure that I stopped by to say that, let you know what I'm working on, introduce myself to you, and just would love to hear what you're thinking about and what you're working on, and happy to help in any way possible.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. We have 10 more minutes for questions and answers. Who has I see Nichelle and I see Barbara. Nichelle and then Barbara.
Hi, Trey. Really good to meet you, and really good to meet Erica as well. Thank you for joining us. My heart goes out to Haiti, everybody affected there, and relatives affected here in the United States. It's such a sad situation. But my question for you, Trey, is that for as much as we're happy to see the administration really stepping up and helping Haiti, Haiti always has a crisis that has to be managed crisis to crisis. Have there been discussions about actual, true, sustained, ongoing help for Haiti, reparations, if you will? I say that because a few years ago, I grew up in Haiti and how it was created, but it was only until a few years ago when I began working with a reporter and really drilling down into how Haiti was created and all the repercussions from the Haitian Revolution that I began to understand the extent to which Western powers have penalized the country for its existence to begin with. Has any real discussion taken place about ongoing sustained support?
Well, I don't know about, and I appreciate that, Nichelle. I don't know about any additional discussions. I think the focus now is just on rescue and recovery. And the focus is on making sure that our military, our USAID folks can get in and help people where they see fit, and where people need it the most. I will say that there's an ongoing relationship there, and just like the United States jumped to action during the last earthquake, during this earthquake, and in or the last natural disaster and this natural disaster. It'll be the same as a policy, but I can't say about kind of ongoing talks with state or the UN or otherwise about additional action.
I'd like to, hi, I'm Gary Pierre. I'd like to follow up on Michelle's question, which is a very goes to the heart of the matter about Haiti. We seem to be in a 10-year cycle with natural disasters, and we call them natural disasters, but to me, they're man-made disasters because, earthquake and hurricanes happen all over the world. They don't create the kind of results that we see in Haiti. So how can we work in preventive measures to ensure that we're not always rushing in and being heroic in some ways, but at the same time, it's a vicious cycle. And so how can we deal with the root cause of the problem?
I think that's after this particular recovery, I think that's going to be an additional question just for our relationship from the State Department side with Haiti. It is, over the course of the years, and you understand this very well, is that this is an ongoing issue, but I'd have to defer to somebody that's more on the diplomatic side to talk to that and about any kind of discussions that's happened with that. I wouldn't want to overstep, my coverage on this.
We understand. It's just that you're here, so we have to ask a question.
Oh, no, I get it. I get it.
Okay, Barbara?
Yes, Trey, I really do appreciate your presentation. It's very needful. But when I think about what the Republicans are doing, it seems like they are focused on getting them in and getting us out through voter suppression. So my question is this falling off the important list? I mean, I'm glad you're doing something on infrastructure, but Republicans and Democrats, they don't want to go down on falling bridges, so that gets them together. But stepping back, I don't hear enough or see enough about voter suppression. I want to know, how's the filibuster issue going to be handled? Because if we don't get that right, we lose it all. So this is what keeps me up, worried about almost more than anything else, that we could lose it if we don't. Are we focused enough? If they're not, maybe with the news doesn't give me that impression we are.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question, Barbara, and I appreciate it. You're absolutely right. Voting is the threshold issue, because we wouldn't have been able to do any of this infrastructure. We wouldn't have been able to do any of the things we did on the American Rescue Plan if it wasn't for the folks in Georgia coming to the rescue, if it wasn't for the folks in South Carolina doing what they did in the primary. And if it wasn't for being able to push the voter outreach and the vote all across the country. And I think there is focus on it. The vice president has it in her portfolio. She is using her bully pulpit to go around and talk about it and push it. But also I can say that there's always ongoing discussions with congressional leadership about how legislatively this can happen, both with the HR 1, S1, and also what will be HR 4, John Lewis voting rights. So I think, for our part, we can walk and chew gum at the same time, and we have been. And so the president is committed to getting something to his desk that he can sign. And we're committed to helping Congress to get to that place. But it's not going on deaf ears. It's something that we talk about every day and that we push, both from the public engagement side, working with democracy groups, working with civil rights groups. The president and the vice president has met with these civil rights groups and really talked to them and leaned on them for information about what they think would be helpful in all of this. And so I can say that the groundwork is being done and that it's absolutely at top of mind as an important issue for us. And we just have to go through that legislative process.
What about the filibuster issue? How's that going to be handled?
I'm not sure. The president has come out and been on the record about saying that there could be different exceptions, but I'm just not sure where that's gonna fall.
Okay, Rochelle Riley.
Thank you very much. Good morning. I'm sorry. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to ask a question. The Biden administration is doing much to reach out to African American constituents by group. I'm invited on some of those calls, faith-based here, civil rights there. But is the administration doing any type of polling and research to get a greater understanding and information about where African Americans as a whole, not as a monolith, but just as a whole, stand on issues that we learn about before there are elections? There are a lot of those conversations that happen leading up to a presidential election, but I'm talking about the types of reports that the Joint Center used to do and the types of issues that affect the communities across the board.
Thank you, Rochelle. And we do. There's polling and information that comes out from our political shop, the Office of Political Strategy, that helps to guide some of those conversations. I'll give one example of something that you see in Black communities, different feelings about police reform. And you see in Black communities that there's a desire for reform, but there's also a desire for wanting there to be less violent crime and needing to do something around that. And so we look at those, kind of very specific ways that the Black community is looking at issues, and we try to put that out. And we do have an understanding of where the Black community is, and we get it. We come on here. I came on here and told y'all about the policy, but what's on Black people's minds is voting, is police reform, and those domestic issues that are happening right here. So we're still doing that. We still get a readout of what's happening, and then we try, like you said, we try to engage directly with these groups to know what people are hearing on the ground, to know what they're seeing in their communities. So I think there is a definite focus there, but we are doing our homework on what people think is actually important.
Let me ask a quick follow. Would it not be helpful to have all of these reports and research made public so that it's clear that it's happening? The strategy behind it is our political team's purview, but I think yes, just like coming on here and just like anything else that we that I do on my outreach, the more transparent we can be, the more that we can get information out. Because sometimes, like these programs, whether it's like Black farmers, for instance, that we're trying to help, or this child tax credit, I don't think it, a lot of times we get credit for those victories. And part of that is the way that we put this message out. And so we do have to do our part to go out and make sure that people have the information. But that's a point that I'll take back from a strategy standpoint.
Can you just explain to people what the Black farmers' victory was?
It was the $5 billion that was put into the American Rescue Plan to push back on some of the or really give resources for the sort of historic discrimination that's happening in the farmer of color, Black farmer community. A lot of you may be interested or know about the Pickford cases that came down on the Black farmer side. And that showed that there had been this discrimination. There's ongoing litigation about it right now, but we're committed to staying through the process of making sure that these Black farmers who were discriminated against be able to have the resources that they need to be able to survive.
Okay, thank you. All right, Hazel, if we can't get to everybody, please put your questions in the chat and then they can be dealt with there. Hazel Edney.
Yes, good afternoon. I just want to say this quickly. I was a part of a team in 2010 that went to Port-au-Prince, Haiti, right after the first earthquake. And right now, what I'm seeing is the same thing we were seeing then. There's not nearly enough coverage. Afghanistan, notwithstanding, the suffering is great there. But it's sort of like, I guess, in competition with the news cycle with what's happening with Haiti. So I just wanted to encourage everyone to push forward and do as much writing as you can on Haiti so that the people there won't be left behind again. As for Trey, thank you so much. And Erica, thank you so much for coming on. Erica has been a blessing to me in terms of getting me great interviews with cabinet secretaries, et cetera. As you said, we talk often. What I want to ask, I don't know if Erica is still on, but then I'll ask you, and Erica, I'll ask you as well. When can the Black press get an interview with the President of the United States? We have missed that often with the past presidents. And it's one thing to write about from a Black perspective, all of the great things that he's been doing, because he has indeed been doing great things, and we are in those bills, et cetera. But the cross-examination is missing, if you will. Barbara Reynolds, she writes for my Newswire. Mr. Sweets, he's on representing the St. Louis American, and there are other Black media Black-owned media and press members, Richard Prince, for example. And so when can we have that interface with the president where we can sit down at the White House across the table from him like the civil rights leaders do? We are also civil rights leaders in a sense, covering these issues that are important to us. So is that possibly on the agenda?
Thank you for that question, Hazel. We have talked about this and I don't have a date or an hour or a time. Right now he's very much all Afghanistan, COVID, and Haiti. But I do know that it's on the table. All I can really say at this point is there'll be more to come. But he has certainly expressed interest. He has a great relationship with the Black press. He's done quite a bit of Black radio, but I know that's not all encompassing of Black press. So, he and the vice president both are very interested in doing Black press. And, you get those emails from me every day. One day that email will include, an additional opportunity. So I just want you to be aware that I am advocating every day. The president and the vice president have both expressed interest. That's why I'm here. And all I could say is more to come.
Richard, I have a quick follow before you go to a different question.
Okay, because this is the last question now.
Oh, I hate that, but this is so important to me and has been for years. I'd like to know when any administration will stop segregating the Black press from the white press. I know that seems a little controversial, but this has been going on for some years now. And I know there was a time during the Obama administration where Black columnists from mainstream media were put into the Black press pool so that we weren't in some of the conversations. So I'm just trying to get a sense of why that's done and when it might stop.
That's a fair question. I like to think that we aren't necessarily segregated, because I know that a lot of my colleagues work with many of you all here. I know, April, we have Darlene, we have many other people in the briefing room. So I'd like to believe that we aren't segregated. I'd like to believe that I'm here just to make sure that there's access and that everyone has a seat at the table. But there's lots of overlap on the press team. We all want to work together to just make sure that all our bases are covered. We certainly can do a better job of that, but I know that many of you work with, all of my colleagues that are considered, press, not just Black press. I think the folks that I work primarily with, in addition to you all, as Black-owned media, we want to make sure that essentially everyone just has a seat at the table.
All right.
And I'll just hop in just to say that, in Erica, since she's come on, she's fighting tooth and nail. She was very modest about her answer just then. but she's fighting tooth and nail. You look at the Haiti coverage, making sure that folks like Island TV, local press had access to the meeting with the Secretary of Homeland Security. That's the way she's approaching this. So I can guarantee that at the very least, you've got a person in the room who's going to be fighting with you. That was the thing that people always said about my old boss, Benny Thompson, is that he was the kind of person who you could trust being in the room by themselves because they wouldn't sell you. He won't sell you down the river. And that's the kind of work that Erica is doing. She makes sure that the Black press, that Black people are represented on the comm side. So I'll have to give her a shout out for that.
Okay, but to your point, we could certainly be doing better. And I certainly don't want to dismiss, what it is that you're saying. We can always be doing a better job. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah. Is Peggy Lewis on this call now? Is she?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, you are? Okay. Well, during the Clinton administration was when the quote unquote specialty media started. Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, Erica, as I was listening to you, I held your position when in the Clinton administration.
So I've read about you.
I know the fighting you're doing inside. I also know how you're trying to, keep everybody informed. And, there's just a lot going on. And, I commend you and Trey, because it is a tough position, because you're trying to, I was trying to make sure Native Americans are at the table, that Hispanic reporters were at the table. So it's a fight that we continue to see. And unfortunately, when I was a reporter in Miami back in the 80s and 90s, I mean, we've been fighting this battle of getting access and being in the room. But I see the improvements, because knowing that you and Trey are in the room, I know the battles you're dealing with, and I know how you have to fight to get to be heard, and competing with everything that's going on with Afghanistan. I mean, there are priorities where nothing else matters. So, I commend you, and just hang in there and keep it up. You're doing a good job.
Well, thank you, Peggy. And I'd love to touch base with you offline, because like I said, I've heard a lot about you, and I'd love to just
I'll send you some information.
My role a bit more if you have time.
Use the chat room too. Dorothy, did you have one final thing to say? Dorothy Bland?
Sure, and I posted the question in chat. Thank you for the presentations today. My concern has to deal with COVID-19. Obviously, I live in a part of the country that has been ravaged by disproportionately with regards to COVID-19. And I think that the issues with regards to economic or systemic and long-term, but I also want to know what the administration strategy is going forward beyond wave 4. Because this isn't just sort of, you get vaccinated and that's it. You talked about sort of, the third booster, and I'm all in for that. But long term, what's the strategy?
So
this is generational.
Yeah, no, I think, and our COVID equity team and Cameron Webb and all those folks are really pushing on this. But where we are right now is that we have to, there was this first wave of folks who were going to get the vaccine and get vaccinated no matter what. And then now we're in a place where we're just kind of hyper focused and localizing because the difference now is the couple of dozen people that you can move in Mississippi or Arkansas or Alabama to go and get the vaccine. And so the approach that we're taking, because there's the big approach with, the celebrities and the different influencers. But where we are now is that your local influencers have a lot more sway with people. And so we are trying to, from like an outreach and COVID equity standpoint, go to these communities and let them know, one, the information that they need about COVID-19. For the Black community, we had the Shots at the Shop program where we had information to 1,000 barbershops across the country. And they were able to just give the information. If they wanted to, they could set up the barbershop as a vaccination facility. And so we're going to continue to look for ways outside the box of doing that. Something that we're working on. I've got a meeting about it later here today. is working, via HBCU Week, which is coming up, to do an information campaign that's going to go not just to the HBCU administrators, but also to students. Also thinking about people gathering around homecomings and what that looks like. So our approach now is more hyper localized because that's how we're going to move the needle from this point on. So it's really an outreach piece. It's really going out and finding those communities, getting that data about where people aren't vaccinated, where people are dying and suffering the most, and putting the resources there. Another thing is people having this information so they can go to their elected officials, both local and state. A part of the problem, I'm from Mississippi, and I may be, I don't want to get too political with this, but you have leadership there that for various reasons isn't accessing the resources. Something you saw Congressman Benny Thompson, my former boss, talk about how Mississippi hasn't taken certain resources that are available to them to get people vaccinated. And so I think it's about letting folks know that this resource is available to them, but also going down into the communities and get the people who can move folks. So it's pastors, it's teachers, it's people who are in these in your barbershops. So we're going to just continue to try to find ways of thinking out the box and being creative about getting people vaccinated.
All right.
Okay. And I know, Mr. Prince, with that said, so we have the Seattle Storm coming to visit the president tomorrow, and I know Trey has another call to jump on for that, because in addition to all his other portfolios, he does sports outreach.
Oh my
so I do need
if you cover sports, I'm the guy who invites folks to the White House to do the championship visits.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all very much for this. Any other questions that I left standing, please put them in the chat and they can respond that way. And I'll also note that Dr. Fauci and some Black African-American doctors were at the NABJ convention, and they said the same thing that you just said about the action is at the local level, because that's who people believe and trust, all the local doctors and the local officials, not the federal government necessarily. All right, we're going to move to our next segment. Thank you all very much. I much appreciate it.
Thank you.
The next, we're going to talk about Afghanistan. We got some great people to talk about that. I didn't introduce myself earlier. I'm Richard Prince, and I write the column called Journal-isms about diversity issues in the news business. And in the last column, we had some Black journalists who have been to Afghanistan, and they gave their assessment about how we got to where we are today. And so some of them are here along with some others, and we want to hear from them. We have Ozier Muhammad, who was there with the New York Times, Ron Claiborne, who was there with ABC News, Randall Pinkston, who was there with CBS News, and Malcolm Nance, who is writing his book about, it was the MSNBC terrorism expert, and as he told us earlier, is writing his book about terrorism inside the country as well as outside the country. So I'd like to have the people I just mentioned briefly tell us what their analysis is as to how people of color particularly should see this whole situation. Who wants to go first? Ozier, I see you. You go first.
Okay, all right, fine. Well, as I mentioned in my FB posting, that it wasn't any surprise to me that one of the first individuals to cut bait and leave Afghanistan was Ashraf Ghani. And I think that it was pretty clear to me that the government from the very beginning, after the lawyer Jirga, when the lawyer Jirga convened early on after the Taliban had been so-called pacified, that the fix was in. Basically, the fix was in that the government of the United States was very much influential in choosing the leaders. I mean, it's pretty common knowledge that would be the case, but the transactional nature of the relationship between Karzai and Ghani, I don't think was reported well enough. And perhaps somebody else want to chime in on that. But the transactional nature and the reason why, in my opinion, that we were there for so long is because of that situation with the military industry, Raytheon, Boeing, you name it, that these industries were going to make sure they were able to increase the volume of their revenues through defense contracts. And what better place to do that than in Afghanistan?
Okay, Malcolm, what do you have to say about that?
1 second.
Yes.
Sorry, I was just moving around.
Uh-huh.
You know, I mean, there's a long-term belief that can pretty much justified. I'm sure we'll be doing a lot of reporting about this over. Where did the $2 trillion we spent in Afghanistan go? And, you know, anecdotally, they say that 90% of it went back into the United States. It didn't go to Afghanistan. The Afghanistan forces had a defense budget over the 20 years that came out to something like a $60 billion expenditure, which is relatively cheap for an entire armed forces to be stood up. So there really is something to be said about discovering where all that money went. So, you know, before I go into my bit, that's pretty much what I can say about that with regards to contracting. It's extremely, extremely expensive to war fight with an army, especially the United States Army. Because, I mean, if you just look at the per diem rate that you would get for, Kabul at the State Department, even though you might think it's cheap, you know, $150 a day per hotel and like $75 for meals and incidental expenses, times 40,000 contractors per day, you know, those little things can add up. Not to mention that we had 36,000 contractors in Afghanistan who were not only supporting our operations, but were supporting the operations of the armed forces of Afghanistan as well. So that is an enormous, enormous quantity of money. When we left Afghanistan over the last few months, all of those contractors went away. And I'll tell you, as somebody who fought in every war since 1983, every major combat action other than Grenada and Panama, since 1983, the armed forces support structure that we had put in place in Afghanistan was dramatically different than what we had in Desert Storm. In Desert Storm, it was all internal logistics. We moved our own food, we moved our own material, we had officers in charge of that. When we went to Iraq and Afghanistan, almost 100% of that was done by contractors. So that's where your $2 trillion went. It was not spent internally to Afghanistan. And believe me, I mean, they couldn't even, you know, I spent a lot of time there. They could not spend that amount of money, right? They would have to be sleeping on beds of gold bricks. So that's all I'm going to say about the defense contracting side of this. I'll get over to my thoughts on Afghanistan later.
Okay. Ron Claiborne.
Well, I mean, a very good point there by Mr. Nance. I think when Afghanistan is inevitably the 20 years there examined, there's going to be a lot of scandal, including where did that money go? What were we doing there in the first place? But clearly the immediate political and humanitarian problem, certainly to Americans and to Afghans right now, is the mishandled or the chaos that has ensued in the last week or so as the Taliban took over. A lot of questions are going to be asked about what did the Biden administration know and expect, and I think Joe Biden has taken a very precarious position of saying, in effect, I take responsibility that all of it wasn't my fault. I mean, he's speaking out of both sides of his mouth. The buck stops with me. I take full responsibility. But those Afghans, they were in a hurry to leave, and who knew how fast this thing would collapse? That's going to be a problem. And as we see,
the Republicans, who had no problem with the deal that Donald Trump cut with the Taliban, where he went out and said that we're welcoming them in because they're going to kill terrorists, which is one of the strangest things I've ever heard. Those same Republicans are pouncing, and they see Joe Biden as weakened and vulnerable, and that very well may be the case. And very quickly, to your point, Mr. Prince, about African-American journalists, I think, you know, when we cover a situation like this, with the U.S. occupying and imposing itself on a foreign country, if there's any value in having a different perspective, it is that we tend to be able to see it through the lens of the man imposing his will on people who really don't want them there, and not understanding the culture and history of a place. I certainly, that was my sense of it when I was there up in the north in late 2001. I mean, but clearly this is a problem. It's a humanitarian problem. It's a moral problem, and it certainly is right now a political problem for Joe Biden and by implication for the Democrats.
Okay, Randall Pinkston, are you? I can't see you on my screen. Randall, are you there?
He's hiding.
No, I'm here.
There you are. I see you.
Yeah, can you guys see me? Listen, thank you so much for inviting me. I just want to listen to Malcolm Nance and Mr. Muhammad and you. Gosh, it's the early onset of senility here.
Not that early. It's not that early anymore.
Wrong. But let me just, in terms of how this happened, I want to go back to my first temporary duty in Afghanistan. I was among a group of about 200 correspondents from around the world who traveled overland from Peshawar, Pakistan, crossed the Turkmen border into Jalalabad in October 2001. At that time, as Mr. Nance well knows, there were very few American boots on the ground that we could see in any event. We were doing the fighting, as it were, through our proxies, through people who some folks said had previously been Al-Qaeda, and they just changed their turbans. I don't know. But in any event, we're in Jalalabad. There was a mini jirga there run by a guy named Haji Abdul Qadir. Yeah, Qadir. He elder from Pashtun territories in the area, and they had what was probably the very first post-Taliban election. It wasn't for the entire country, it was just for that area. From Jalalabad, we journalists were trying to get to Kabul. My crew, the CBS crew, couldn't leave with everyone else. And we did an assignment somewhere near Jalalabad. Later that day, we get back and we see a lot of the vehicles that had left that morning back in the parking lot. And we were wondering, why is everyone back? It turned out that the convoy, which was not a tight convoy, it was a leapfrog, you know, people would stop and go. 2 taxis had been pulled over, and 4 journalists whom I had met the night before had been killed. I want to give their names: Harry Burton, Maria Grazi Catuli, Julio Fuentes, Azazullah Hadari. They were killed. Drivers of taxis were sent back, 2 drivers, to tell the Western journalists the Taliban are still here. That was November 19th, 2001. Suppressed.
You broke up.
My opinion, we Americans tend not to remember our, as we look at Viet Cong, and I think my internet connection is messing up here. Am I back now? It says that Viet Cong is being the Vietnamese looked at the Viet Cong and the Viet Minh as being Vietnamese. So they were never on all fours with whatever we were giving in Vietnam. And so when Ho Chi Minh and the quote unquote Viet Minh, Viet Cong came into South, everybody was Vietnamese. Ditto in Afghanistan. Taliban are Afghans. They're not some foreign outside entity.
Oh yeah, your internet connection is.
Nance perhaps can weigh in on this. That for the past 20 years, the the Taliban has been whispering in the ears of those quote unquote 300,000 Afghan soldiers, take the Americans' money, take the Americans' weapons, learn how to use them, learn their satellite stuff, learn their communication systems and their tactics. And at some point, just give them to us. And we've seen that happening. That's my, conspiracy.
Yeah, your connection is
Never
fuzzy.
left.
Okay. Malcolm, your name came up several times. What do you say?
Okay. He's right about one thing. Let's start off with some things that I think everybody needs to know, since somehow in news media over the last 2 weeks or so, week and a half, let's call it, everybody seems to have forgotten that there was this war in Afghanistan, and it only seemed to have manifested itself the previous Sunday, 1 week ago, when the Taliban started making their offensive.
Yep.
So it is very important for people in the media. I'm a member of the National Association of Black Journalists, but technically I am not a journalist, right? I am a spy. I commentate on MSNBC, and you might notice that the things that I say are dramatically different from a lot of the things Richard Engel might say, or, Nicole Wallace, or definitely Chuck Todd. These people are reporters and journalists, and they have a beat, and they have things that they have fixed in their minds to say. I come from a completely different perspective. I too went into Afghanistan just a little bit later, and in just after the Tora Bora operation in January of 2002, and I went from an Afghan adjacent country through Torkham Crossing to Jalalabad, where I staged at a safe house. And then I went and assessed where Osama bin Laden went, because he was there a few days earlier in Tora Bora, and poof, like that, he disappeared. I was an intelligence contractor at the time, which is good, because I could operate in places government personnel couldn't operate. The special forces couldn't go into other countries willy-nilly. And more importantly, I had spent 20 years in counterterrorism, and certainly working with Muslims. So I actually was there as a Muslim. I prayed as a Muslim, and I met people face to face. And this opened doors, whereas they saw an American in uniform, they wouldn't talk to you. And I was also with Haji Qadir's forces out of Jalalabad, the Northern Alliance, the Pashtun guy who aligned himself with the Northern Alliance forces up there. So that being said, I learned some fundamental lessons while there, which reinforced everything that I had already known with 20 years in naval intelligence, working strictly in the Middle East, Sub-Saharan Africa, and South Asia. And that is that they will cut a deal and turn on you in a heartbeat. And so will we. The first time the United States ever betrayed an ally took place in Libya in 1807. Let's get some accuracy on that. In our fight with the Barbary pirates. We were having a problem in Tripoli, Libya. One of our ships, the USS Philadelphia, had been captured. And we landed in Tobruk, Libya, the Benghazi, Derna area. And we forged an army of locals, and we're going to march all the way across what is now Libya and come from Tripoli from the south and take that city with this brigand army of Libyans, including some prince in the local principality. By the time that force went to like 80 miles from Tobruk to Derna, where the Marines landed, that's the shores of Tripoli, which, by the way, is nowhere near Tripoli, we betrayed them. We had already cut a deal with the Barbary pirate chief, and we abandoned that force in the field. So we've got 2 solid centuries of turning our backs on our allies in the Muslim world. So that being said, somehow culturally, we just cannot learn to understand that other peoples who live on the other side of the world with their own culture, their own values, their own religions, and this is our biggest problem, we cannot accept that those values are not our values. We cannot accept that the way that they do business will not work out in our interest, because everybody loves us. I think we have this, and I've said this on air just recently. We have a bigoted, racist attitude towards the world. And I'm saying this as a professional intelligence officer. This is not me, Malcolm Nance, the African-American, saying this. You know, if I was a white guy, I'd have to say this. We are a bigoted, self-centered culture. And saying that,
Malcolm,
yes,
with a room full of experts in the State Department, nobody knew that. Nobody understood that. I'm surprised.
Look,
I'm surprised that they're surprised.
Let me tell you some things about the Bush administration. I'm going to give you two anecdotes about the Bush administration. When we left Afghanistan and started the invasion, started planning in February 2002. That's when I got my first contract with Naval Special Warfare and Special Operations Command to start operational planning for an invasion of Iraq, 1 year before we invaded. I was making $10,000 per class every 72 hours to train SEALs and Special Boat Squadron people in prisoner handling in Arabic, right? All for Iraq, not Iraqi dialect. None of this was for any other dialect. And in the run-up to the invasion of Iraq, I was making so much money, I felt guilty. And I sent a letter to the Secretary of the Navy and the Master Chief Petty Officer of the Navy, and I said, look, you are about to invade the middle of the Middle East, right? Mesopotamia. You need every person that can speak Arabic. I would request respectfully to be brought back on active duty because I'm charging you a boatload of money to do something I could do for free and help you in this invasion. I have a letter, which I'm going to frame someday, that will be in my memoirs from the Secretary of the Navy that says, we have no foreseeable requirement for people who speak Arabic. I mean, we're about to invade a country of 40 million Arabs. And he did not want anyone else who could speak Arabic because he thought, like Dick Cheney said, they will come liberate us and join us and we'll have all the interpreters we need. Why did we have interpreters in Afghanistan and Iraq? Because they would not teach the soldiers or often the State Department personnel. Who were rotating through by the thousands into Afghanistan. Even CIA officers weren't fluent in Dari or Farsi or Pashto or any other dialects over there. Not even Punjabi, right? Which is Pakistan, to listen to the ISI. None of that. We think we're going to get these people. We wouldn't have to fly out 15,000 translators if our special forces groups were all trained in Farsi or Dari and Pashto. We wouldn't have to. We could feel the culture better. We don't do that. Why? The United States of America. Everybody wants to drink Coke. Everybody wants to emigrate to the United States. But what I've learned, this key point is they don't betray us. They make choices within their culture which satisfies them culturally, religiously, and benefits their family. And if that means no one in the Afghani armed forces comes to work, the day that they heard Kandahar was captured, or the government of Afghanistan quietly tells their army to turn over to the Taliban. And there's a video of this you can watch on YouTube where an Afghan army special forces guy is crying to his officer, please don't make me surrender my gun to the Punjabis, because that's what they believe the Taliban are. They come from Pakistani back from the Punjab. Then you now know what happened. They did not defeat the Afghan army. The Afghan army did not come to work. They turned lock, stock, and barrel over to the Taliban. There were very little fighting. Several provinces in the north, which has Pashtun minorities, literally surrendered to guys on motor scooters who were like the day before the terrorist cell in that province. And they were called by Taliban Central to say, hey, we cut the deal with the provincial governor, go to the headquarters, take control of the province. So guys who were literally making car bombs one day are now the governors of provinces the next day. Afghanistan did not fall.
Malcolm,
Afghanistan was given away.
Well, and is it credible to you that the administration had no idea that the Afghan army would not stand up and that this Taliban would sweep in and take over in a matter of days? That this was unimaginable? Is that credible? It's not to me.
It is credible. It is credible. This level of betrayal. You know what's not credible to me is the way that the Defense Department seems to have no memory of the fact that in February of 2002, we executed this same intelligence strategy against the army of Iraq. We literally, okay, this is very few books report this, but it's a fact. We called every general in the Iraqi armed forces on their mobile and private phones the days before the invasion of Iraq. And we said this, tell your army to go home. And if you guys remember all those scenes of the Iraqi army walking away, changing out of their uniforms, that was hundreds of thousands of men went home. That's exactly what just happened last week. Only the Taliban had been cutting this deal for a year in secret because Donald Trump signed a deal with them on February 29th, 2020, and every person in Afghanistan knew they were turned over to the Taliban. And at some point, the Taliban is going to start taking provinces, and that they are going to know that. We had faith in Ashraf Ghani. President Biden speaks to Ashraf Ghani. He does not speak to a captain in the Afghan Special Forces in Kandahar. So if he had heard from the Afghan Special Forces in Kandahar that they're telling us to go home, they're surrendering us, we want to leave, we could have predicted that. He also listens to his generals. His generals, of course, are going to listen to their liaisons on the ground. Those liaisons on the ground had been withdrawn because we were executing the troop withdrawal that Donald Trump had signed for us. Sorry, by the way, this could have happened on January 1st because Donald Trump ordered Secretary Esper to execute this on January 1st. And you would have had a much faster collapse and a lot more bloodshed, I suspect, because we would have disappeared in like 24, 36 hours, as opposed to a long drawdown. What you saw was not an invasion. It was not the collapse of the army. It was a transition in order from the government of Afghanistan to the government of the Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan, which is the Taliban.
Well, I suspect when this thing is analyzed, we're going to see that there were warnings that this could happen. I've already seen.
But you have. But let me. You know what? One quick point. This is an old saying in the Arab world. When you go to buy a camel in the camel souk, don't try to hustle the guy who's been selling camels since he was 5. These people know. Kipling has I'll end on this point. Kipling has a famous poem about this, right? At the end of the fight, a tombstone white with the name of the recently deceased, an epitaph drear, a fool lies here who tried to hustle the East. We are just the fools. And we need to understand that if they had given us 48 hours, 13 days, 15 days warning that they were going to collapse and that a deal was cut, it still would have happened this way, because it happened on the Afghans' terms, not ours.
Hey, let me. Ozier wanted to say something.
Yeah. I just wanted to chime in on something.
Am I still breaking?
Malcolm Nance said earlier. Go ahead.
All right, Randall, are you trying to say something?
Yeah, Ozier, I was. To Ron's point about whether or not they knew. It kind of begs the question, in my humble opinion, with all due respect, Brother Claiborne, because whether they knew today or whether they knew last year or whether they knew 10 years ago, the point is that old saying, Afghan is the requires go to die. It has defeated so many through the years, and it has nothing to, I should say has nothing to do. I really don't know how you can withdraw gracefully from a battlefield where you have lost the war. You tell me, Mr. Nance, if that's possible. Chaos has to ensue when you're not the victor.
Good point. Let me also, since you're journalists, and there's a lot of crazy journalism going on out there, I do not approve of. Especially today, some journalists had tweeted out that she and a small plucky band of journalists were inside the airport and essentially risking their lives to get this story out. Well, the Department of Defense has information officers there. They have combat camera crewmen there. You could watch Defense News and get just as much good information from that as you would these journalists there. The point that's happening here is what we are executing in Afghanistan, which we have now taken out 20,000 people. We are executing a non-combatant evacuation operation. I have done 4 of them, including intelligence support to the evacuation of the American embassy in Rwanda, who had to drive through a genocide, watching their staff members literally being hacked to death as they drove out of an embassy. So these operations, in most of the time, are pretty bloody. I did Eastern Exit in Somalia, Liberia, Albania. Non-combatant evacuation operations, or NEOs, come in 2 flavors. Permissive, which means that you can fly in, get your people, fly out, and non-permissive, which means you have to literally fight your way in, engage in combat, extract your people, and go out. Despite what everybody thinks is going on in Afghanistan, we are actually executing a permissive NEO. That's a phrase you should all come to learn. We are not in a combat environment. It is a country which is now controlled by a foreign regime we do not agree with, who was an enemy. They were an enemy until the day Ashraf Ghani left the country and handed the keys to the Taliban, and they became the de facto government of Afghanistan. So that's why we're calling them. We are negotiating with them, and we are negotiating with them on the terms of the February 26, 2020 agreement. We have deals with them that are signed by Mike Pompeo and Donald Trump. So deal with it. We are evacuating all the Americans we can get. I suspect that the Taliban, in order to not have the entire world treat them like North Korea, will continue to allow us to do this NEO. And we will probably get all the Americans that want to go out. The problem that you have in Afghanistan is this simple. 50% of the population are men under the age of 25, which means they were all born, somewhere around the year 2000 or a little bit before that, when the Taliban fell, or after. That means they don't really know anything other than the American occupation of Afghanistan. And for the last 20 years, one of the biggest problems in the world has been Afghan men under the age of 25 trying to economically migrate to Australia. Australia's got 4,500 of them in refugee jail who have been get on little boats and try to come over from Australia for the last 10 years. The Pas-de-Calais, they find Afghans all the time who walked through Iran and Turkey and are trying to find their way to England. Most of those people at the gate who did not work for the United States are likely economic refugees. They just see a chance to get on a free plane out of Afghanistan. If you're going to do that, you're going to take out 40 million people of the 38 million people that are there. We have an obligation, I think, to get out the army, and the army that work close to us, like the special forces, and we have an obligation to get out American citizens and their families. And then the NEO must end.
For that. All right, Ozier, please continue.
Yeah. The point that I was going to make was about the difference between the North and the South in regards to the South. The South is a place in which the theocracy of the Islamic empire, in which the Taliban tried to build, is analogous to the South here, and no one's explained that better than Sarah Chase, who spent about 20 years in Afghanistan, working on her own as an independent, and also working for the military, the U.S. military. But she's very clear-headed about the magnitude of the corruption, and she has a new book out called something. The title to the effect is "The American Corruption." But at any rate, the point, one of the points that I wanted to make was that we went in there under the guise of ridding the folks who attacked us on 9/11. But what happened was, as I mentioned before, that it became transactional, and the attitudes of some of the folks who went in there, even journalists, even some of my colleagues, there was a small cadre of my colleagues who had disdain for the Afghans. Speaking of the interpreters and the support groups, for instance, I heard the word flung around so many times, Rafi, F you, Rafi, Rafi, you're a dumb MS, and to that effect, and it's the Pashto or Dari-speaking people know what that word means, know what it means to say F you or you're dumb MF or something like that. So it was just a clusterfuck all around, and not only with some aspect of the journalists who went in there, but with us. And that is, we're going in there thinking that after we've set up our transactional situation, that we're going to somehow change the culture of Afghanistan, as if we can change a belief system. I mean, how crazy is that?
Can I quickly jump in?
Sure.
That little anecdote that I say on TV every once in a while, when I went up to Tora Bora and the operation had been winding down and my job was to figure out how they screwed up, right? Where did Osama bin Laden go? How did he get there, right? Single contract guy doing sensitive strategic intelligence. And I met the imam in Tora Bora. And this guy is just sitting in his little house. I was there with the Haji Kadir's guys and they go, oh, we have an American Muslim. He wanted to see what one of those looked like, right? So I go sit with him. He systems test me. He has me read the Quran in Arabic. I read the Quran. So I read the Quran in Arabic, right? We have a grand old time. We pray, we drink tea. He talks about Osama bin Laden. No one ever talked to this guy. The problem we have is that we immediately come there, we disrespect people, and we occupy it as if it's ours, right? The spearhead of everything we had done there should have been with people who were Muslim Americans or people, local people who were incorruptible. Money takes everything down there. Even though, here's a good example, even though I was there at the direction of their warlord to get through the checkpoint to Tora Bora, I had to bribe the effing guards with $500 cash. Right? And I'm like, they had been so used to be handed handfuls of cash from 5th Group Special Forces that, the U.S. government still got to pay to go into the village we just bombed. I mean, they saw Afghanistan on the tribal level as a money-making opportunity. And as you know, if you've been there, okay, if you're a Westerner, you'll never understand it for your entire life. You can live there for your whole life. But if you don't live like a local or respect the local, well, they are interested in only 3 things: getting their male children married, getting an increased opportunity for their family, and living their life in accordance with their religious dictates. That's it. They want nothing else. Which is why they enjoy living in mud huts, which is why they enjoy goat herding, which people tell me, oh, you're a racist. That's a stereotype. Every house in Afghanistan's got goats. There's a reason for that, because that's their way of life. You can't bring cattle in there. I mean, it's literally like Vietnam. White people dropping into the middle of that world with no respect. But Al-Qaeda respected them, right? And until you respect Al-Qaeda, I mean, not Al-Qaeda, but I'll respect the religious beliefs of those local people, they won't even talk to you. And you know what? One last thing on women. It is a patriarchal, misogynistic, fundamentalist Islamic society. Almost the exact same. There are religious groups in the United States that are exactly the same. Mormons, right? Those Mormon cults out west. You cannot change that. You can't say we want every child to learn to study. They want to marry their daughters off to increase the value of their families. It's tribal. And until you respect that they are tribal, everything they do is for their tribe, which starts out with the immediate family and goes to the extended family, goes to the village, goes to the tribe, goes to the regional tribe. And they will side with their tribe at every turn. What you saw with the Afghan army was the entire nation siding with their tribes. Everybody just went home.
Okay. Somebody, I think Lynn Adrian put in the chat link to something that Sarah Chase wrote. And I'll add that she was on the PBS NewsHour on Friday, and you can access that by going to the PBS NewsHour website, and you will see her talk about the corruption in Afghanistan, what she knows from having been there.
And you know what an Afghan man would say about that? They would say, "Oh, very good article. That's just the way it is here."
Right.
Yeah, we don't accept that. That's the way it is.
Yeah. May I?
Oh, Geneva. I'm sorry. That was Geneva, not Lynn.
Yeah. May I say something about Sarah Chase? I have great respect for her. I mean, she was a long ball hitter. She was there for 2 decades practically. And but I have to take one issue with one thing, and that is, to my knowledge, no one has done a polling of Afghan women to know where they want to go, what kind of Western values they want to bring into their society. We're making the assumption here that Afghan women want to become Westernized. We're making, or want to become, want to become more like the West. Now, I'm very empathetic to that. I'm very empathetic to the idea that women have their own choices, that they decide whatever they want in life, there should be equality in every way. But we're making the assumption that their desires for Western values trump their religion. There needs to be some kind of polling, which I'm sure won't happen, about what do Afghan women really want, from north to south, from Kabul down to Kandahar. What do they want? And for us to make the assumption that we need to stay in Afghanistan after we vanquished bin Laden, after we drove Al Qaeda out of Afghanistan, that somehow our mission is to somehow liberate the women of Afghanistan. To me, that is just completely insane. And I have a lot of problems with some of my friends, women, who think that we need to stay in Afghanistan for that very reason.
What was happening in the last 20 years?
Is wanting the ability to determine your own future a Western idea? I mean, you're saying it's, if that's what we're pushing for or believe in, that's a foreign ideology within the culture of Afghanistan. Is it possible that many women do want more freedom without it being a Western notion?
True. All right. I think we've got to close down this segment, but let me just point out one thing, and that is we haven't been hearing these perspectives over the 20 years that we've been in Afghanistan. We have not seen people of color on the air writing pieces in our newspapers and magazines that are making these points. And so since one of the reasons we exist in this roundtable is to talk about diversity issues in the news business, I think that we've heard some more testimony about that in the last few minutes.
Quick point, Richard.
Yes.
Hey, if any of you have access to the White House, I know you just had a speaker on a little earlier. Hey, Biden's got to fire some people right now on his national security staff. You can start with that kid, Jake Sullivan. I know he's highly involved. He's got a lot of experience. He was a policy wonk from everywhere. I would have resigned on day 2 from this. And I would have said,
how's he going to fire him if he's still insisting that he did nothing wrong?
Now's a good time
fire him for what?
Well, the thing is that for the lack of planning, even though they said that Biden's buck stopped with him. But you know what? I made a proposal on Twitter the other day. Make General Russell Honore the national security advisor, and you won't have this problem.
I hear that.
There's an op-ed for somebody.
Okay, well, thank you all. Let's give a hand to our Afghanistan panel. I think they enlightened us all, and I see in the chat, don't forget to look at the chat, everybody, and you'll see some more commentary on this, and also some thanks and praise to what we just heard. We want to move on now and raise a toast to our new editors in Texas, Maria Reeve at the Houston Chronicle and Katrice Hardy at the Dallas Morning News. So anybody who has a glass nearby, let's raise it right now. And
I got a cup.
A cup, anything will substitute it. And congratulate them and wish them well. Thank you all. Okay, now we want to hear from our editors, anything they want to say. And I want to ask about Texas. Texas is getting a bad name around the country now because of the Democrats leaving, so that the voter suppression laws won't be passed, and the governor poo-pooing masks for COVID. What do you all think about that? And how should all? Yeah, let me just leave it at that. What's your perspective on all that, Maria and Katrice?
Hi. I want to, before you go to politics in Texas, yes, I want to personally congratulate Maria and Katrice, because I'm just so proud of them, and because they are in Texas, perhaps they can speak to your question. When I was executive editor, when I left my job, there were about 4 of us, and when I left, there were 3, and now I just see Black women and women of color just popping up all over in leadership positions in newsrooms and in media.
And so I just want to personally tell you, I got your back. I'm thinking about you guys, and I'm very proud of you. And I'm sure you'll have something to say about Richard's question about politics in Texas.
And I echo what Wanda said. Just so proud, so proud.
Yeah, I didn't mean to overlook that.
We have your back.
Yeah. Sherry was one of the 3 that I left behind, and now she's in retirement with me.
Well, I really appreciate that. After my announcement was made, and I'm sure Katrice experienced this too, the outpouring of support was tremendous and overwhelming, in fact. And so I take on this role knowing that there's a lot of support out there. I mean, I don't think I'm here without Sherry Marshall, Wanda Lloyd, without Michael Day, without all the people who came before. And so I understand, I'm looking over the Zoom, just filled with so much appreciation for both what you guys did before us and the support that you offer. So I thank you. And even people I knew as an intern in Charlotte, Mary Curtis and Sheila Solomon.
Right.
How far I've come from that point. So thank you all. I really appreciate it.
Okay, Katrice, are you there?
I am, and I want to echo what Maria said. But before we get to that real quickly, I just want to say, Richard, I've been in Texas 1 week, so give me a break on what's going on in Texas.
Okay.
Maria can answer that more. But that said, though, no, I think back about all the many, many people who I've learned from, who I admired, who I was afraid to talk to at NABJ conferences and get to know. So many of you on this phone call have been people that I have wanted to model my career after, and I've wanted to aspire to be like. And so many who aren't here. I was thinking back about my days at the Pilot when I remember we had just 2 female Black women, Deborah Adams Simmons and Tanya Kennedy, as deputy managing editors. And I thought that was huge, right? And so to be a part of the sisterhood and then the brotherhood is truly, truly rewarding. And I think I'm sure Maria feels the same. We feel blessed and honored to carry the tradition forward, but more importantly, to make sure that we're doing so for others.
All right.
The 2 of you know each other, Maria and Katrice? Have your paths crossed?
We did at the last in-person NABJ, right, Maria? We met, yes.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
Cool.
Anybody got questions for them?
I would like to welcome them. I am so happy in my lifetime to see two Black women running the two largest publications in Texas. I see Dorothy's nodding her head. I'm director of the School of Journalism and Media at the University of Texas at Austin. Dorothy is the past dean at University of North Texas. And proud isn't the word. It's inspiring. It's it's, we always had the capacity to do this, and now we are doing it. And I just want to say welcome. And if there's anything that we can do, at the academic level, I don't mean to be speaking for everybody, but I think we feel this way. We really, we reach out and we just want to be a part of what Texas journalism is going to be.
Okay.
If I could chime in as well, Maria and Chris, I wanted to, Maria and Katrice, I started to say Clarice, welcome to Texas. Maria, I left the Chronicle about a couple of months before you arrived to become ME from the editorial board. And before that was the editorial page editor at the Philadelphia Inquirer. And I'm glad to see you both in Texas at such an opportune time for news and for comment. And I wanted to see if both of you maybe could comment on the challenges you face in trying to get the culture of both papers to really embrace the digital era that we're in. Coming to Hearst in 2018, I was really surprised to see how entrenched they were in 20th century thought in terms of journalism. I know that's one of the challenges you face, not so much with even the older reporters and editors, some of the younger ones as well. They had grown up in this way in which they believe print was the end all be all. And we know now that, that's not really the future. And I'm just interested in finding out how you're meeting that challenge of getting these newsrooms, especially with Hearst, which was so encapsulated because it was Hearst and it had these other entities that help bring revenue in, that the Chronicle, it seemed, was sort of like laid back in terms of what it needs to do to embrace the digital era. And just from both of you, what are you doing to try to deal with that issue?
I think from a Hearst perspective, they're starting to change that mindset, because I think everybody's seeing, if you know any young people, my nieces and nephews, my own 20-something, they never touched a newspaper. And our readers who subscribe, 7-day print subscribers are older and reading us. And so we understand the business imperative to get our newsrooms, in that mindset of we are a digital media company. We are not strictly a newspaper anymore. And so my charge, all through the interviews I had, was, what are you going to do about this? And there was an understanding of, the lack of advertising in the newspaper itself and how we have to grow our digital audiences. And so I walked in understanding that is what they'd like me to tackle. But you're right. I mean, I was surprised, frankly, some of the younger people had this same kind of attachment to print, an attachment to writing 50-inch stories that no one is going to get through, like no one. So it has been, I mean, it's baby steps, like getting people to understand, we have to add some value online. We have to make sure that we are as timely as possible. We are right and timely. Helping even my middle managers understand that, I think, is where some of the challenge comes. But going for a second back to Richard's initial question, Texas is wild. I'm just saying, like, there is stuff that, and Nancy Barnes, who was 2 editors before me, when we talked on the phone, she talked about, there's stuff every day. There news that just, you turn over a rock, there's a story. Like, she just helped me understand that, things that happen here didn't happen in Minnesota necessarily. Helping people understand that we have to be on it, and we're in a hyper-competitive environment, and we have an Austin bureau, but most of the people that report in DC are here. So it is in our political situation, as everybody knows, we just keep writing. In our news meeting Thursday, that morning, I said, okay, we'll see what today brings. And they told me to stop saying that because that was the night where Dan Patrick went on Fox and said what he said about Black folks driving our numbers here. We also had a Texas Supreme Court ruling that day. I mean, it is nonstop, which I like.
Okay.
Richard, I have a follow if I could.
Please, please.
This is Rochelle Riley, and it's for both editors, but I'll start with my friend Maria Reeve. I am so proud of both of you. I'm so excited. I'm just jumping up and down. You can't see it because my video. But of all the gin joints, of all the states that we would have these two fabulous leaders, you just said Texas is wild, and Texas is wild. So we're talking the anti-COVID lobby. We're talking a governor who's nuts. We're talking just major weather. And then we're talking voter suppression. Can you speak practically about some of the things you're looking at to handle some of that? Do you have to bring in more expertise? Do you, just what does that look like as you look at this daunting task that is just a lot on its own, but you're doing it in a place that really is wild?
Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the first things is looking at the staff and evaluating, even the kinds of beats that we have. There are a couple of people in City Hall, several in Austin, people of our suburbs, and you need to evaluate where our priorities should be and what that looks like. I mean, we have a pretty small bureau in Austin. So I'm pleased with at least a number of people, but as everybody knows, newsroom is actually growing right now. And so I think for us, the evaluation happens in, are there things that our audience is telling us that they don't really care that much about, and can we shift those resources into areas where our audience, by virtue of what they're reading and where the traffic is, do care about. So that's one of the things. One of the things I didn't want to do was to come in immediately and just start concluding. I wanted to listen a little bit to staff and to some community members to be sure we were going down the right road.
Okay.
Yeah, and from my perspective, I guess I'll take the second question first and then go back to the first about digital transformation and newsrooms that you think they would have long started that process. I think obviously, again, full week one just ended for me. So I'm about to start week two. And yeah, I feel pretty good about the resources in the newsroom. I just don't know that we've made the best choices with those resources. So obviously, my goal is to meet with nearly 200 people, and we've got some openings, so not that many, in 60 days. And so I've asked them all 8 questions that I think would be helpful so that we actually have conversations as opposed to me just interviewing them. And so we're working through that. I've done 25 actually, in the last week, despite all the breaking news and others, because I did some on weekends. So, that is part of the process of understanding, our audience metrics. Obviously, I had some access to some of that before I started, but really diving in and taking a look at, where we're getting our traffic, what we're missing. How we're going to approach the resources and use the resources that we have. So, but, Austin, I think it's a big deal, but also it's how those decisions actually affect your community. And so that's where we have to connect the dots as well. I think from a digital perspective, absolutely. I was really surprised at the time of the morning meetings, at how many print meetings the newsroom still has. And I told myself I wasn't going to make any drastic changes right away. Well, I did. So I've already gone ahead and moved up the time, killed one print meeting, talked to them a lot about planning. We should not be starting our day trying to figure out what we have that day. We should know what we're going to have, at least enterprise-wise, 30, 60, 90 days in advance. So those are the things that we're working on and we're putting into place and executing, again, week one, but they're kind of getting a roadmap of where we're going to go. I will also say that I was blessed, Michelle and I, I've worked with Gannett for 5 years. There is no more digitally, I don't think, in the industry, digitally savvy news organization or company than Gannett. I mean, say what you will, they get it. They understand the audience. They've invested in audience research, and that has been a phenomenal opportunity for me, learning ground for me, frankly, in the time that I spent with the company, because I can see kind of the playbook, if you will, of what's going to work and how to transform. And I can tell you, every Gannett newsroom I was in, it was all about transformation, not so much digitally, but on the choices we make to serve our audience and on who we were neglecting when it came to serving our audience.
Okay. Any other questions?
Richard?
Yes.
This is Rebecca.
Oh, Rebecca, yes.
Hi, everyone. First of all, Katrice and Maria, I congratulate you. By the way, I'm Rebecca Aguilar. I am going, in 2 weeks, I'll be the president of the Society of Professional Journalists, first Latina and woman of color to get that position in 112 years.
Great.
So, yes, Maria and Katrice, I welcome you to Texas because I'm in Dallas. I've been here since 1994. Right. I have been vocal with the Dallas Morning News when I constantly saw the masthead, all white people. I wondered, where are the people of color? I know NABJ, NHJ, everybody's got qualified people. So when I heard you two women were taking over, it was like, I swear I wanted to cry. I thought, look how long it took. Look how long it took. And I appreciate and I thank you because you're both champions of change. And that's what we need today. And I think that since 94, I've seen change, but at a snail's pace. People have talked about diversity, both your papers, TV stations. Everybody talks the talk. And it's even gotten even bigger during, after Mr. Floyd passed away. But I know, I'm confident. I know both of you ladies are going to do great. And yeah, I have your back too. As a Latina, I hope that you will continue growing and bringing more Latinos into the newsroom and have more Latino coverage. I know I watch both your papers and I've seen what's happened in the immigrant community. Obviously, I'm the daughter of undocumented workers turned green card holders turned American citizens. So I have roots in that too. But I just want to say that I appreciate you because I know it takes a challenge to get to where you are. And I'm not here to criticize, I'm here to lift you up and understand that I hope that you will open the door to me and SPJ when I come to visit you at your newspapers. And of course, Katrice, you're in my neighborhood, so I'm coming there first. But congratulations.
Absolutely. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you. Thank you.
Congratulations, Maria, you too. You know, I guess I'll make the drive to Houston. It is a long drive, but I'll make it. Congratulations. Big kiss. Un abrazo. Welcome.
Okay. All right. We'll have about one or two more questions. Then we're going to go to our introduction, so we'll know who actually is on the call. Any other final questions?
Yes, I'm going to jump in here, Richard.
Yes.
I just want to say welcome again to Katrice and Maria. I wanted to ask the question, and thank you for today's Dallas Morning News. As I was reading, I was just overjoyed to see the census update, and Texas leads the nation. So with that being said, I'm curious as to what your plans are, particularly with the young audience, because it's phenomenal the growth that's taken place in this state.
Wait, Texas leads the nation in what?
Population growth.
Oh, okay.
Younger audience.
Okay.
Absolutely. So a couple things, and I think this is kind of an age-old industry problem as well, right? Digital to print, and now how do we attract young readers? I think, you know, the biggest way that I think we can reach young readers is really understanding their patterns. I think Maria made some really good comments on how our children or nieces and nephews and family members are consuming news. They're consuming a lot of news, but they're consuming it on social. And they often don't even know that they're getting it from us or the Houston Chronicle or, you know, the New York Times, you name it. And so I think we have to do a much better job of branding what they're reading and meeting them where they are. I also think, you know, civic engagement is a huge issue for many young people when it comes to the environment, when it comes to voting rights, even when it comes to, frankly, issues around just diversity, because their friends represent so many different segments of the population that maybe we didn't recognize, our parents didn't recognize growing up. And so I think understanding what they value will really help us make good choices about how we reach them, but also reaching them, frankly, being better at social, you know, figuring out how to use these tools. I mean, you know, they aren't really on Facebook per se, and I think we think about Facebook more. They're on other platforms that we haven't played with. And so that's where we have to go.
Okay. All right, anyone else? Final question?
Richard, this is, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Sharon.
Richard, this is less a question than just a comment about one of the things I heard at NABJ this week was a lot about the imposter syndrome. And I was just fairly surprised to hear that from so many very accomplished journalists. I don't know if you two ladies face that or will face it, but I hope you know that you can reach out to people. I don't mind saying that when I left the Telegraph as editor, I was pretty beat down and had become somewhat isolated because the challenges, the daily challenges were so immense. And I hope you never allow that to happen to you, that, you know, you take time to reach out to each other and to other colleagues to know that you are not alone and you have great support from a large family of other journalists.
Did you see the imposter syndrome?
Yes.
What's the imposter syndrome?
That essentially, you know, do I really belong here? You know, am I really, you know, right for this job? Am I really ready for this job? Am I really equipped for this job? Stunning how much that came up during NABJ.
Okay. Maria or Katrice, you want to respond to that or not?
I mean, I think at different points through at least my career, sure, I felt that, but also to your point, Sherry, about having support, also enjoyed immense support from people like you and Reggie Stewart and any number of mentors throughout the career, and girlfriends. Like you call up, it's like, I don't know if I can do that. You know, girlfriends would say, girl, yes, you can. And I don't want to hear it again. And so just like that sort of support. And I look forward to, working with people in my newsroom, but also reaching out to folks like Monica and Katrice and Raina and Savannah and who I don't know. And, I feel like there is this sisterhood and, that is support there. As I went through the interview process, I entered it sort of doubtful, but, as I went on, and I said before, I've been in newsrooms where you see, managers who are role models, very good people, and others very good leaders. And so I felt like through this process that that I was the right person for this job at this point. Like I believed that and went into all the interviews with the first corporate types with that in mind.
All right. Okay. Is that the last one? Okay.
Richard, if I could, I forgot to preface my question with a congratulations to both Maria and Katrice. I am here in Texas, in Houston, and hope to be some type of resource to you, actually. So thank you for your presence today.
Yes, thank you from everyone, I'm sure. Thank you. All right, now let's introduce ourselves so we know who was here and who we should get in touch with afterward. Rochelle Riley is first on my screen. Rochelle?
Sorry, I was trying to unmute. I'm Rochelle Riley. I am the Director of Arts and Culture for the City of Detroit after ending nearly 20 years as a columnist for the Detroit Free Press.
Okay, Claudette James.
Good afternoon, Claudette James, founder of Truth in Education and Journalism. And we had, Prince, I put it in the chat room. Thanks tremendously for the incredible conversation today. All of the speakers were amazing. And the Afghanistan piece truly brought forward some incredible story ideas. So hopefully we're ready to run and try to get some of that information into the Black and Brown communities. Thanks tremendously, Prince.
Okay, thank you. Nichelle.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nichelle Smith. I'm the Enterprise Editor for Racism and History at USA Today. And to break down my job in a nutshell, I do projects about Black and Brown people. The latest one is called Never Been Told, and that's at neverbeentold.usatoday.com. Thanks.
All right. I said it's one of the journal's publications, just did a piece on Never Been Told.
Yeah,
So
editor and publisher.
Yes,
Editor.
Ian, very good, very good. All right, Sharon Farmer, our photographer.
Southeast. What's up? I'm Sharon Farmer, originally from Southeast.
Southeast Washington, for those who are out of town, but not in DC. Okay. All right, Dorothy Bland.
Hi, I'm a Texas transplant. I live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I'm a professor at the University of North Texas, 25 years in Gannett, a reporter, editor, and publisher.
Okay, Matt Brown.
Hey all, my name is Matt Brown. I am a White House reporter at USA Today. I've been doing that basically since the Biden administration came in. Before that, I was doing fact checking for most of last year, and just am really honored and excited to be in the presence of so many amazing and well-accomplished reporters and journalists.
Glad to have you, Matt. All right, Maria, we know. Harold, you can tell us again.
I just want to congratulate both of you again. I'm Harold Jackson. I'm retired after 45 years here in Pearland, Texas. Was on the Chronicle editorial board, and I would like to be a resource to both of you if you find that there's something I can help you with. So thank you for your presence today.
All right, Barbara Reynolds.
I have served 61 years in journalism, starting at the Columbus Colton Post, editor at the Chicago Tribune, editorial board at USA Today, 8 books, started 2 publications. But when I look at you, I almost want to cry, because when I started in 61, no one who looks like me or any of you was even there. So I just honor you and so happy. And I cannot believe in my own self that I can look at you after so many years of just not having hardly anyone to talk to, be with people like Ethel Payne, which some of you probably don't know, but I just love you. I love just looking at you. Thank you.
Okay, we all need to know about Ethel Payne. Ozier, are you still there? Okay, we'll move to Tanette. No, she's away as well. Okay. Oh, no, there you are. Okay.
I'm here. My apologies.
Okay, Ozier and then Tanette.
Yeah, I'm retired from the New York Times. I was there for 22 years as a photographer, and before that I was with Newsday, and before that 2 other publications. Started out with Johnson Publications, and I remember Miss Reynolds in Chicago when I was there. So I'm very happy to hear how delighted you are that things have changed, and you're absolutely right, and so am I. I'm very delighted too.
Hear, hear. Okay, Tanette.
Hi, your timing is perfect because I have to take off to actually cook dinner, but I am Tanette Ely. I am Vice President of Print and Digital Media for the Wisconsin Black Media Association. I am a former reporter and columnist for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, where I spent 20 years. And I also teach journalism at Marquette University and the University of Wisconsin. This was a great meeting. Thank you so much. I'm so inspired by Katrice and Maria and Richard. I have to take off, everyone, but thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. All right, Ron Claiborne. Unmute.
Got to find it first.
Okay.
Yes, I'm Ron Claiborne, and I spent most of my career, the vast majority of it, 32 years at ABC News, retired 3 years ago, and I'm currently writing for the new Facebook platform, Bulletin.com. Before ABC, just very briefly, I was at a local station in New York, Channel 5. Before it was the Fox affiliate, the New York Daily News, and United Press International.
Oh, I
very
had no
happy
idea
to be
about
here.
the Daily
Great
News.
discussion.
Yeah, I didn't know about the Daily News. Okay.
Wow. In the good old days.
Yes. Ron Taylor, are you still here? Okay. Peggy Lewis.
Hey, everybody. It's such a great discussion. It's so much truth. Congratulations to the sisters who are stepping into those fabulous roles. You know, the fight continues. I agree with Barbara Reynolds that to live to see so much coming together and finally, like, you know, sisters stepping in, brothers stepping in. Oh, but the fight continues. So great discussion. Glad to be here. And I too have to jump off. So timing is good. I got to cook dinner too.
Okay, all right. Randall Pinkston. Okay, Randall, we'll come back to you. Hazel Edney.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hazel Trice Edney with the Trice Edney Newswire, editor-in-chief of the Trice Edney Newswire. I'm president and CEO of Trice Edney Communications, also an adjunct professor at the Kathy Hughes School of Communications, teaching multicultural media and journalism entrepreneurship this semester. Thank you.
Very good, very good. Okay, we'll go. Well, we got Katrice. Sherry Marshall.
Hi, Sherry Marshall, 40 years in the business, the last 20 as the editor in Macon. I retired from the job 3 years ago, and I'm finally crawling back to reality and trying to re-engage. So good to be here. Very, very interesting discussion.
Great. Kathleen McElroy.
Hi, as I said, I'm director of the School of Journalism and Media at the University of Texas at Austin. I had 30 or 40 years in the business. I can't remember, from small papers in Texas to the New York Times. And I'm just happy to see some old friends and colleagues on this call. And I actually researched Rochelle and Mary Curtis for my dissertation. So.
Oh, really?
This has been great.
That's good. Okay. Alelia Bundles.
Richard, thank you as always for pulling together such a wonderful discussion. I spent 30 years as a producer and an executive, about half with NBC, half with ABC. The last 15 years, I've been writing books and serving on nonprofit boards. Relevant to this discussion, Columbia Global Reports is one of my boards, and the books that I write are about Madam Walker and other women in my family. I want to say congratulations to Katrice, who was at the Indy Star in my hometown where I grew up, and congratulations on the Pulitzer and for making that paper better. And Barbara, I just want to say thank you to you, because when there were very few in 1976, when I was a baby producer at NBC, I shared a cab with you going to the Democratic Convention in New York. So thank you for being there.
Yes. Okay, Rebecca, we know about you. You just did that. Benita Bing.
Hi, I'm Benita Bing. I am the president of the Exposure Group African American Photographers Association, located here in Washington, D.C. And I also am the owner of the Talbot and Bing Studios, located in Northeast D.C., in the Brookland area. And thank you for a wonderful discussion. It was very enlightening.
Very good. Roger Witherspoon.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm semi-retired after 55 years in the business. That included stints at NBC and New York Daily News. And if you go back to the early 70s, I was the first Black State House reporter in the East. But I had a desk in the basement of the State House because Blacks weren't welcome on the main floor. And in '85, I was the first Black editorial writer in Texas. And I suspect
Where in Texas?
Oh, the Dallas Times Herald.
Okay.
Which folded in '91.
Mm-hmm.
In those days, folks that I met on the phone, when I went to talk with them, they said, "But I didn't know you were Black." And I suspect that our two new editors aren't going to get receptions like that when they go around in Texas. But I wish them the best and take care.
Thank you. Deborah Berry.
Good afternoon. I'm Deborah Berry. I'm a national correspondent for USA Today, and I'm on the enterprise team. And I write a lot about voting rights and civil rights.
Very good. Gene Meyer.
Hi, Barbara Reynolds and I are almost exactly the same age, and I'm glad we're both still here. I'm former Washington Post reporter and editor, author of Fight for Freedom, The African American Soldiers in John Brown's Army, and I'm currently working on 3 books. One is a family memoir, one is more of a professional memoir, and also a collection of columns I wrote for Maryland Life magazine. And another great program, Richard. Thank you so much. And congratulations to the Texas team.
Yes, yes. Lynn Adrian.
Hi, first I want to say congratulations to Maria and Katrice. Very, very proud of you. Whatever we can do to have your back, you got it. I'm the director of the Washington Capstone Program, Graduate Capstone Program in Broadcast and Digital Journalism for the Newhouse School at Syracuse University, and longtime broadcast news producer, more recently at ABC News.
All right, Lynn Normand.
Hello, everybody. Lynn Normand. I retired from a very, let's say, fulfilling career at Ebony Magazine when it was really, really ebony. Recently, I moved back home to Memphis, where I do a column for the Commercial Appeal newspaper, where I started my career right out of college some years ago. And it was so wonderful to see all of you. I started writing down the names of everyone that I actually knew here. And then I found out there are people that I knew and didn't write their names down. And I feel like I've met so many new people here as well. And great discussion, Richard, with the White House people, with that discussion on Afghanistan. I just got so emotional, I had to step away for a moment. And congratulations to the editors of the publication. So happy to be here. Great job.
Great. Good. Glad you're here, Lynn. Now let's see where we go from here. Oh, Mary Curtis. Mary C. Curtis.
Thank you. First of all, Richard, great meeting, and everyone on the Zoom, fabulous information.
Great.
Congratulations to Katrice and Rebecca and dear Maria. I want you all to remember self-care is a thing. Mary C. Curtis, office in DC, based in Charlotte, North Carolina. In my background, New York Times and Washington Post. Right now, I'm a roll call columnist. I cover the intersection of politics, culture, and race. And I'm host of the CQ Roll Call podcast, Equal Time, with Mary C. Curtis, which looks at policy and politics through a social justice lens. We have folks like Majority Whip Claiborne and William Barber on, the Reverend. And I'm also a senior leader with the Op-Ed Project, leading thought leadership workshops. And they're actually hiring right now, both full and part-time. I'll drop a link in the chat, particularly if someone is looking to supplement to be a writing coach, which would be working with thought leaders around the country and the world on their pieces. And I will drop a link to that job in the chat.
All right, thank you. Amy Eisman.
Hi, everyone. It's an honor and humbling to be here this afternoon. Richard, thank you so much for the invitation. Came to me through our new dean, Sam Fullwood, who we're thrilled to have on board. I spent about 25 years in mainstream media, did a stint in Texas at the old Dallas Times Herald as well. But I spent most of my career at Gannett, USA Today and USA Weekend, and it's really great to see so many of the Gannett people here from the launch of USA Today. Hello, all my old friends. I'm particularly honored to be in the presence of Katrice and Maria. You've got a lot ahead of you, and we are all here to support you. Our students will look up to you. They're always looking for people to admire and to follow. And I'm so glad to have the opportunity to put you in front of them.
Great, great, great. And we'll be seeing more of Amy, let's say, in a couple of months. Yvonne Roman.
I'm sorry, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Ivan Raman. I'm a freelance writer based in DC, a translator, also an editor. My background basically is as a reporter in Rochester, New York, which is where I met Richard, yes. Miami, Puerto Rico in the Caribbean, and what was I gonna say? Oh,
NHJ.
Of course. And I was former executive director of the National Association of Hispanic Journalists.
Yes.
Just wanted to mention that if in the conversation we kind of had about women and other cultures that we had regarding Afghanistan, if you want to read a novel about that, about women's lives in Afghanistan, I recommend 1,000 Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini, who is the author of The Kite Runner.
One of my favorite books.
Oh, okay.
It's his second novel, and it's really excellent.
Very good. Thank you. I'm writing that down. Would you put that in the chat also for those?
Yes, I did already.
Oh, you did? Okay, good, good. All right. Michael Days.
Richard, terrific program today.
Great,
Absolutely
great.
wonderful. Former editor of Philadelphia Daily News, former VP at Diversity and Inclusion Philadelphia Inquirer, retired since the end of December. Technically retired. I'm working with and for my wife, Angela Dotson now. So there's not a whole lot of retirement involved. Wanted to wish both Katrice and Maria well. I'm really so excited and so proud of both of them. Did want to mention, if folks don't know, that Katrice also is the chair of the Diversity Committee, the News Association, and given all her other duties. And it really is transforming where we're headed. I think you're going to see some fabulous stuff out of them in the next 6 months or so. Not just in counting the number of people who are in newsrooms, but trying to help newsrooms figure out how to move forward and make people feel authentic and bring on more folks. I'm really excited about that. Great to see Norman on the call. She and I are working on a couple of things. One, developing more editors to go into newsrooms of all types, and also to talk a lot of bit and bringing folks to talk about leadership. We created a new program just last month, a master's class on leadership. So we're real proud of that. Thanks much.
Very good. Okay. Angela Dotson, your name just came up.
Sorry, I had to unmute.
Yes.
My name is Angela Dawson, of course. What Michael hinted at is that for several years, I've been CEO of something and founder of something I call Editors on Call, LLC. And what we do is connect freelancers to people who need freelancers, both in writing, editing, visuals, sometimes even people who do intellectual property work, things like that. And since Michael Days joined the firm and announced that at the beginning of the year, our work has somewhat quadrupled.
Wow.
I had let it kind of grow fallow while I was doing things like writing my own books. But one of the things we do is we work closely with a lot of authors. We have people who copy edit. We sometimes edit. Michael's editing a book for Rodney Brooks at the moment on Black wealth. I've written a couple of book proposals. I'm doing some work for Dorothy Gilliam on compiling her columns, and I edited her book, Trailblazer, over the last several years. And both of us, Michael and I, of course, are published authors. My book is Remember the Ladies, Celebrating Those Who Fought for Freedom at the Ballot Box. It came out 4 years ago. I'm still doing speaking engagements for it. And as a result of it, I got to write the introduction to a 100th anniversary edition of Jailed for Freedom, which is about the militant wing of the women's suffrage movement. So we've been busy with that. I'm gonna make brief my formalities because there are people on this call who've actually known me 45 years, but I'm not gonna say how long I've been in the business like Barbara Reynolds. But my formalities are that I was the senior editor at the New York Times and style editor at the New York Times. I've worked for several other newspapers. I started with Gannett in Huntington, West Virginia, Washington Star, Louisville Courier Journal. I may be leaving out a stop or two, but I've had actually 4 careers, I think, in newspapers, then magazines. I worked briefly at Essence. I was the executive editor for Black Issues Book Review. I've been a freelance editor and consultant for the last 10 years, and now as a published author, and mostly book work. And I've been training to do voiceover and narration work.
Oh my goodness.
So I got to keep moving. I tell Dorothy,
So.
you know, I am a colored woman. I will sing, dance, cook, whatever I have to do to feed my babies. But I no longer have children at home, but we still keep reading. Michael says we're not retired, we're rewired. So, you know, that's the spirit. And I take part of that spirit from Barbara Reynolds. That Barbara may not even remember this, but one day she had been laid off from USA Today, and I called her and she said something like, Barbara Reynolds Enterprises, or whatever she called it, her company. You go, I'm right. I'm not know what else. Morning. I have already started something. So. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I didn't know what else to say. Laying off was a nice word for it.
Right. So that's where we are. If you have work that needs to be done, Editors on Call would like to assist you.
All right, thank you, Angela. Miranda Spivak.
Hi, everybody. I'm Miranda Spivak. This year I'm an Alicia Patterson grantee working on some stories about the expungement of police records, both civilian and police, and the impact on whether or not we can keep law enforcement accountable without those records. I did a series a few years ago for Reveal about state and local government secrecy, which has really become an area that I've burrowed into. Used to work at the Washington Post. I want to note two things about two opportunities that people might be interested in. One is the Fund for Investigative Journalism, of which I am a 4-time grantee, is looking to get first-time applicants to apply. The next deadline is September 15th, and they're offering help from former grantees like me to help with the application process. So we really would like to get the word out on that. And then the other thing is that a job that I held for 2 years in Indiana as the Eugene Pulliam professor, which I then handed off to the wonderful Deborah Douglas, and now she's gone. That is a tremendous gig, financially and otherwise, and it's open, and it requires teaching one course a semester. So I would really encourage people to look into that and see if they can apply. Deborah was the first person of color to hold that position. I was only the second woman to hold that position, which had, been open for 20 or 30 years. Anyway, if people want information about that, either of those things, I'm happy to supply it.
Thank you, thank you. Diana Fuentes.
Hello, Richard. How are you doing? Another great roundtable. This is really great. I learn all kinds of cool stuff and meet all sorts of neat people too. I'm executive director of the Investigative Reporters and Editors, and I've been a journalist for more than 30 years as a reporter, editor, publisher, and I'm based in San Antonio and very proud of Katrice and Maria. So if you guys need anything here in IRE, and as everyone has said, you all have our back. We have your back actually too. And so if you need anything, let me know. I'd be happy to help you. IRE.org. We're all there to help.
Here, here. Elliot Francis.
Yeah, okay, there we are. Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. Richard, again, just to echo everyone, what a great roundtable today, especially with our perspective, on Afghanistan from folks who were a little culturally different than folks we hear from most often these days. Want to send a shout out and say hello to Lynn Norman and Amy Eisman, both former colleagues. Lynn over at Johnson Publishing, where we were in Chicago. I was there for about 3 years. And of course, Amy Eisman, we worked together at American University. So I wanted to say hi to both of you today. Welcome into the cabal, as it were. My name is Elliot Francis. I'm the host producer of Now with Elliot Francis, live streamed over Facebook and Facebook Live and YouTube, beginning its new season October 14th. Great to see everybody this afternoon.
Excellent. Ron, is Ron Taylor back yet? He's got his thing still on. He told me he had to leave, but he's still showing. His name is still showing. Anyway, Maggie Rivas Rodriguez. Maggie?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just had to turn myself on. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Katrice and Maria. It's wonderful to have you all here in Texas, and it's wonderful to see the Texas journalism more reflect what our state's demographics are. I'm a professor of journalism and media at the University of Texas at Austin. I work with Kathleen McElroy. She's technically my boss, although she probably would say I'm not your boss. But I also do an oral history. I've worked at the Dallas Morning News, was my last job many years ago. I covered the US-Mexico border for about 12 years, a long time. And my big thing that I do now, and Ivan Roman is involved in this as part of our resource council. I do an oral history of Latinas and Latinos around the country. It's called the Voces Oral History Center, and you can see it at vocescenter.org. We're doing Voices of a Pandemic, where we're doing interviews with people, Latinos and Latinas, about their pandemic experiences. So really welcome to both of you, new editors, and I look forward to seeing how we all transform things. Thanks.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Okay, I think did we leave anybody out? Miss anybody? Okay. All right, we have a few minutes left for discussion. If anybody wants to bring up something that they weren't able to bring up before because we were rushing through, or if somebody wants to just say anything. Otherwise, we'll adjourn.
I have a quick thing. This is Rochelle
Yes.
Riley.
Yes.
I put this in the chat, but I wanted to say it out loud. There are those of us who have been doing this a long time and some shorter, but I think it's so important for us to make sure we hold the networks and newspapers accountable. And the conversation that we had with our longtime foreign correspondents and folks who have such knowledge, we need to make sure that we send notes to the folks who program for the networks that they need to have this type of conversation that we had today. So even though I put it in the chat, I wanted to say it out loud. I plan to send a note saying that this is what they should be programming and having them on to talk about. The discussion about Haiti and Afghanistan today was more insightful than anything I've seen on television in the past 2 weeks. Thank you.
All right. All right.
Rochelle,
Thank you.
Rochelle, thank you very much for that. I apologize for I've got to get a new router. I think that's such a great idea. It has always been interesting to me that all of those quote unquote talking heads that we see on the Sunday talk shows and for the most part are not us.
Right.
And very few have experience that many of us have. Malcolm is the one notable exception. I don't consider myself to be that knowledgeable anymore because it's been years since I was on the ground. I'm, as you know, retired, quote unquote. But there are others. There are younger correspondents who have had more recent experience and who have studied the issue. People from the State Department, from DOD, their voices should be heard. And I would think that they would have a different perspective. And some of this misinformation that we continue to hear might be challenged and corrected, reversed.
To that, Richard, I just want to say that they bring back the white correspondents who are retired, like Dan Rather and Sam Donaldson. They have them up on CNN, giving their reflective remarks on what's happening now. So you're more than qualified.
No, thank you.
We're here. For those who are retirement age, they have so much, to offer from those rich experiences. And so.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yes.
I suggest, especially as I see all of you guys with your expertise, and I saw Randall and Ron about your Afghanistan experience. That's why you have Twitter. I mean, you go on Twitter, you let them know, hey, if you need another expert, on Afghanistan, I did 15 years covering so and so. Because every time I watch reliable sources on Sundays, I tell the Brian and I go straight to reliable sources. Okay, love to see all the white panels, but there are people of color that we've been there too. And so sometimes it's not tooting our own horn, it's making sure they can't say, well, I couldn't find any. Well, you know what? I told you on Twitter, I have, 40 years experience, blah, 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 blah. So this is my thing to you guys, because I started a group called Latinas in Journalism. And I have 2,500 members. They're on Facebook, all Latinas. So if you guys have any job openings, tell me about
2,500.
But 2,500, and
Wow.
and that's counting LinkedIn. But I started the group because one day I saw Chuck Todd at a conference, and I went straight to him and I said, "Look, you talk about Latino issues, you talk about immigrants, undocumented workers, but you have a bunch of white people talking about us. Look, here's this group. Find me." Don't give me any excuses, please. And then I took a picture with him. So every time I see, the same white people talking about the border, I tweet him and said, remember we met at the SPJ awards?
What does he say?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, I'll pass you along to my producers. Fortunately, when I became the president-elect, Cesar Conde, the head honcho at NBC, wrote me an email.
Yes.
And so now, I just send it to him and say, hey, where are we? Because he has said, and this is nothing that he hasn't said publicly, he wants 50% women and 50% people of color at NBC. Well, if we have a direct line, I mean, my obligation as a woman of color, a journalist, and now a leader of SPJ is to make him know we're out here. There's no excuses.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I heard that. Anyone else? Okay. Well, thanks everybody for attending. Thanks to all those on Facebook Live. If you wanted to find out what was in the chat, I'll be glad. Just drop me a line.
I think Claudette wants to say something.
Oh, who did?
Oh, her hand is up. Claudette.
Yes. All right, go ahead. Oh, Claudette said, okay, Claudette, yes, go ahead, Claudette, please.
Yes, sorry about that. I needed to clear it. I just wanted to agree with the media accountability reference, and this is key. This is really key because it came up in the last meeting roundtable that we had. What we need to strive for is authentic diversity and inclusion. You know, that is definitely including Black and brown faces, but we must also, with authentic diversity and inclusion, have diverse perspectives, historical context, life experiences, and on and on and on. We must hold the media accountable beyond just, you know, Black and brown faces. We need authentic diversity and inclusion with the media. So that's just a continuation from last week into this week. And we saw some of that today with the White House and with Afghanistan and our colleagues who are moving forward and taking charge in the media profession. Thanks for such a great job.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear. Thank you. Okay. Any other last comments? All right. Well, as I say, if anybody on Facebook Live wants to get a copy of the chat, just drop me a line, and everyone who's on the call will be getting that in their email. We plan to meet again in September. I think we're talking now about the second week of September. So stay tuned for a notice about that. And thanks everybody for coming. And we'll be writing this up, and Sharon will be sharing her photographs, and Chevry Lassiter will be making a YouTube of this, so we can all go back and share this with those who missed it and refresh our own memories. So thanks very much.
Good to see you, Mike.
Enjoy the rest of your
you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Richard.
doing this.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Okay.